Hi. We're starting a little late on Monday because, it's Monday. Why not start not on time? What I'm going to be doing today is continuing to work on dungeon sets. Okay. As you can see underneath me, there is an example of kind of a necromancy lair. I'm going to be finishing up the tiles that are needed to complete one of those. We have it almost, but not quite done. Those there need to be base coated with the blue and the accent blocks. And then we have the age thing. And as you've seen, I've been working on these. They're pretty much base coated. This is the cauldron. You've got it all painted brass. Flame goes in like that. That's what this will look like. And there are 3 flame sigils on the wall. And I got the brass outline done, and now I need to make these 3 look like this. So I'll be working on that too. Pushing the paint away down into little bitty corners there and there and there, and probably doing a fair amount of brass touch-up. Okay? So because I'm going to be doing brass touch-up, I'm going to start with the sigils. Putting those in, we've got copper, scarlet red, and flat black. So that's what I'll be doing, and then touching up brass, and those will be done. And then I'm going to get out the medium blue, which was the base color here for all of these. But first, as I had been touching these up, I noticed on the floor that there are these white specks, and I thought, well, I could touch up all of the white specks. I was very interested in making sure I got the bits down in the crevices. But I thought that after the wash, that might actually look pretty decent. And we're not sure. We're not sure if that will make an interesting variation in how it looks, or whether it will just look sketchy. So what I'm going to be doing is just taking the dark gray wash and washing just the floor here. Just the floor on this one. This is actually an extra one that is painted the wrong base color, so it's going to get totally repainted anyway. But I wanted to test to see how it looks, and if it doesn't look good, then I will go back with the blue and get rid of all the white spots on the floors. And there's a lot of them there that would need that kind of touch-up. The other thing I'll be doing when the blue is out is touching up the base of the cauldron here, because I got brass paint all around it. I knew that would happen. And then this small set of tiles here, these are the pieces that are needed to complete one complete necromancy layer. A bunch of corners, an inside corner. So what I'm going to do is base coat those in the blue. This is what they look like primed. Base coat those in the blue, maybe even before break, and let them dry. And then do the accent blocks so that we will have the base coat all ready to finish for that particular set. Anyway, that's the plan for today. So I'm going to be starting on these sigils. And I have my trusty 25-year-old brush here. And I actually have a brush that Nikki has been using. It looks about the same, that's supposed to be better quality. We'll see. I'm gonna test this one and see. They look about the same. So do something new and thrilling. Anyway, yeah. This little bit down here, these little semicircles are copper. I'm using this metallic modeling color copper. And make sure it's stirred up really well. Oh, yes, a flip. I will do a flip. Let me just stir this paint. So I started out this morning saying, this appears to be the kind of day where I'm going to be dropping things and knocking things over. So please stay tuned because you probably will be seeing some accidents. I already did. I was moving dungeon tiles from one place to the other. You'd think that just carrying something across the room would be easy, but I dropped that. Anyway, this combination of it being Monday and having slippery old fingers, it's kind of deadly that way. But there was something. Oh, there it is, way over there. There's a little bit left in the bottle, so just keep it hanging upside down, scarlet red, that I'll be using quite a bit of a little later. But let's do the copper first, because that one is the easiest one to start with. Okay. These all have little pointy bits, especially the black part here. But this is relatively easy, at least it should be. And we'll just see how things go this morning. Yeah, I know, I forgot the flip, didn't I? Going around and pushing the paint up to, basically pushing it up to the bottom of the raised portion here. To the brass, but not get it all over the brass. It's especially important down at the bottom. When you're looking at it, you can't really see it too much there, but you can see it here. Look down on it. I want to make sure that it fills in the space and goes up to the raised part. It doesn't cover it very much. And this brush is working okay. It's got a nice handle on it. I like that. So that's one side. Up into the corner. That's the hardest part to get because the floor is in the way. And just make sure that there aren't little spots. So that's one of the sigils, and that's how the copper fits in there. Okay, so let me find something to flip. This is dangerous. I'll flip a plastic putty tube. And I can flip it that way too. All right. So there's one coppered. Do the other one, this next one. Interesting, this brush has a pretty nice point to it, but it's curved. The other one isn't curved like that. I don't know if that's a helpful thing or not. I guess In this particular case, when I'm trying to get it up in there, it's actually kind of a helpful thing. Getting started because we were doing an inventory of tiles. And like with this one set that I'm going to be base coating a little later, there are enough dungeon tiles, walls, and corners to finish off a set, at least base coated before they are washed. Discovered that we're missing some pieces that are needed to complete another set. In fact, this one has this really big 4x4 curved wall. I think that if you watched a little earlier, saw that. We need two of those, a left one and a right one. They're actually both the same, ambidextrous. But we need another one of those that isn't even printed. And then there's a bunch of others that need to be primed and then base coated. So what we're trying to do is get one completed example of each set that we have designed. And that will end up being the basis for marketing or selling these. So that's what we're thinking. Okay, I'm not going to be marketing on this show, but I just want to say that our hope is that since we've designed and created these really cool things, that we will be able to make them available. Maybe that might actually happen. But in the meantime, it's just really nice having completed sets we can use on our stream and our stream of our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which is on Sundays at 2. Sometimes it's very dark and dangerous. Sometimes it's kind of frivolous. It's a good variety of seriousness and comedy. Usually, you hardly need any paint at all for these small areas. So the amount that I squeezed out of the tube is like 3 times more than I actually ended up needing. I complain about that constantly because, grumpy old man, and I need to complain about things. So why not that? Complain about the thing that's right in front of me. Cat hair. When we did our first prototype, this was one of them. This part, we tried different colors. We tried like a yellow, even kind of a white, and then got this copper color out and tried it. And the metallic, I think, really sets off the little medallion on the bottom. So that is a rogue bristle or some hair that's hanging on. Tweezers out. Anyway, there. Check this out. Get up to okay, so that looks pretty good. Brush here. think what I'm going to do next is the most difficult of these colors to get in is a flat black, because it's these tiny little spots here where I know that when I push the paint in, even with this little brush, I could try an even tinier one, and I might. That's where it's going to get on the brass, and that's where the touch-up will mainly have to be. The red isn't too bad. This is down here. Those are hard to get to. And right in between here, there's this gap right there that's just really tiny. But the flat black is just a whole lot of really tiny little spots, areas. Like even here, you can see I get the paint in there between these two so that you get a separation. So I'm going to continue using this brush for the most part. And I've got this brush, which is essentially like 3 bristles that I use a lot on minifigs. Get that nice and pointed. And I'll probably use that, like, I'll see how it works in here and there. Trying to minimize the amount of brass touch-up I need to do a little later. So we've got like 3 or 4 different black colors. This one, some of them have more gloss than others. This one is really nice and flat. And that's what we're going for here. Paint stirring thing. Decent investment. It works really well with these Viejo bottles because you can't stir from the bottom. With these larger Tamiya bottles, you can get a stick in there and stir it up from the bottom and get the pigment mixed. But with these, you can't because they're eyedropper kinds of things. That little machine makes really nice whirring noises and stirs the paint. Okay. Well, we're going to start here. We're painting some black in these areas and just those. Starting in this area first with the larger of the brushes. It goes on really shiny, but then the gloss disappears as it dries. As I'm doing this, I'm trying paint in there. Fairly well. I got it way up on the edge there, more than I kind of wanted to. I can do brass touch up. We can't make it look really good. Well, the tip of this brush is just kind of mushing up on me. I'm going to go back to my antique one. Good brush, but the tip of it is basically spreading out. And as you can see, it got black paint up here and there where I don't want it, so that'll have to be touched up. Cut that aside and put this one out. You see how nice and flat that's getting. And then just for this bit here, I'm going to try this. This is I've got 3 bristles brush. I'll hold enough paint to be able to get in. Basically, instead of pushing the paint in, I smooshed it down onto the surface, and there we go. We'll be doing some touch up here. I'm going to just do the other side of this since I've got it on it. Say this is yeah, not working all that well. Yeah, you can see where I'm going to be doing a bunch of touch up, very possibly with this gray brush. Painters behind me are singing merrily today. I don't know if you can hear them. There's a filter on the microphone. But we got 3D printers working very hard behind me, turning out more pieces for these sets. Sometimes, depending on what they're doing, it sounds almost like they're sort of semi-musical. I mean, robotically squeaky musical, but nonetheless. as dry as I can see that, like up here, we actually need to get a little closer to the base of the grass. It's through on the bottom a little bit more than I want. Painting here, and then I want to look at it from the angle that you would see it if you were using it. See what kind of bits need to be painted yet. Like there's a spot there. Reason leaving this in the print or something. But yeah, the other thing you can see is how nice and flat that the paint turns out, which is the look that we're going for here. Well, I'm looking down at it and I can just see that I'm just going to give up on trying to do this without touch up. Make sure that I get the black paint down in there where I need it, and then I'll come back with the grass and clean up these edges because they're kind of messy. I do not know why I am not getting paint on that spot. Okay, well, it's not too bad. I'll come back and fix that after I do the red because that'll probably require more cleaning up anyway. At least having the brass on there already, painting up to the brass edges, at least I can see where the black paint needs to go in deeper so that it looks like I want it. Even though it requires a fair amount of touch up later, this here that I get it right on up to the edges. Maybe finishing up these sigils, I'm going to be painting the black upper part here and all three of them. Then I'm going to paint the red, and then I'm going to do some brass touch up. And then I'll probably need to call on the red and the black again if the touch up goes too far. These are important pieces for the set. They're kind of the showpiece. This in the cauldron that really make the set cool. We want them to look as nice as I can, given the skill that I got. That one came out pretty well. That didn't help. Slips. And when you get paint, but you absolutely don't. You might pull out the blue paint later. You touch up. May or may not remember that spot. getting the paint down in tiny little crevice there. Surface most. Be doing touch up with that for sure. Wouldn't work any better, so there's any point using that. Happened here is that the black paint that I'd squeezed out, it's kind of drying in the palette. Gummy stuff. Gummy paint on the brush. And squeeze out a little bit of fresh paint here. Mm-hmm. That worked well. Not working to get it up into that spot there, and it just splooshed over pretty badly. Yeah, I mean, somehow I managed to touch that with the brush without even being anywhere close to it. Interesting how that happens. Let's see how that looks in the top. Not too bad. It looks like there's a lot of touching up, but that'll be relatively easy, mostly on the surface. There's two of them. Go on to this one. I'm going to start with this little bit here, the part that gets messiest anyway. So get done while the paint is still quite nicely liquid. Get the gummier, it's harder to get into those areas. know where all of you might be from, but here in Michigan, the snow finally stopped yesterday. It started snowing, if I recall, Tuesday night, and kept snowing off and on, lake effect bands, until Sunday morning. And it didn't all stick because the ground was warm when it started, so the first snows kind of melted, at least on the roadways, driveway and things like that. And then the ground got colder and it really started piling up. So I think there were, Lexus uses a snowblower on the driveway. I think there were 3 excursions for anything from like 4 to 6 inches of snow. And then when the snow stopped, just used a shovel because it was too wet and sticky for the snowblower. It just kept jamming it. And shoveled up another 4 inches of it. But I heard, that some people in some places got like 6 feet of snow. Almost 7. 80 inches, I heard, in one location. I'm not sure where. Probably like right in like the western part of New York, probably downwind of Lake Erie. That can be sometimes the lake effect there can be way more significant than the lake effect in Lake Michigan here. This is really very early in the year for that kind of snow. Usually it's the kind of thing that we get in January, or sometimes even, in the spring, sometimes we'll get these things like in March. We get big blizzard kind of thing. And a tiny little bit more. But yeah. Now it's going to be a freeze and thaw cycle. It's going to be below freezing every night. Is starting Wednesday, I think, above freezing during the day. For some of the roads, if it wasn't like really cleared down to the pavement, it's going to be kind of tricky driving because melt during the day and spread water around. It'll get nice and wet, and then freeze at night and get nice and icy. Driving out there, be careful because the roads are going to be tricky. Let's see how this looks from the top. Yeah, I mean, except for the inevitable, unavoidable touch-up that I need to do on the grass all around the black here. Looks like that covered pretty well. Check the other ones before I put the black paint away. And we'll just make all those raggedy edges disappear while I touch up with the grass. I think I can do that pretty well. Okay. The red, there's some spots here. The red isn't too bad, relatively speaking, and there's a lot more of it. But what we're going to see next is whether or not this legacy scarlet red paint has held up. This is fairly old paint, and what I've done is put it in an alligator clip and hung it upside down. Well, so that it settles, so that we can use up as much as there is in the bottle. So we'll see if there's anything even in here. I did this once with another color, and there wasn't any at all. But this, there's a lot of it. It's kind of thick, and so we'll see how it works. There. Start putting red paint on. Hopefully it's not too gummy to use. Seems to be spreading okay. As long as it dries quick. Oops. These are fairly large areas, so I can use, a fair amount of paint and spread it pretty quickly. It did squeeze out probably too much, though. Pretty bright when it starts. It gets a little darker and flatter as it dries. Fine. Yeah, you probably can't hear it all, but getting quite a symphony between the 3D printers that are chirping away, and the sump pump that plays a little bass in the background every now and then. Made a mess there somehow. This will definitely just make a mess because I have to get it down. Little triangle on both sides. That without getting some on the surface. So that is what will happen. It will mush up. Paint this big triangle in the middle. First inspection. So the color's in, and you can see now the brass looks pretty scabby compared to how it looks when it's finished. So that will be my touch-up challenge when the time comes for that. We can go chatty here. Just trying to get the red paint where the red paint should go. And trying not to get it too much where it should. Squeezed out way more than I needed to initially. I wasn't sure if it was going to come out or not, and then it blipped out. Come up on me. Don't want to waste it, but may not work much longer. It was the bottom of the bottle. It's way down at the bottom. That's all real mess there. That'll be a touch-up challenge. white spots. I think that's because the paint is kind of thick right now, kind of viscous, and that it's drying and pulling away from itself in some spots, making little red spots, white spots, or silver spots, or grass spots, whatever is underneath it. Well, let's see if we can get the last one done here. At least see how far we can get. Ooh, got those. It's still there. Using in the process. I'm just going to go ahead and do those right away here. Okay, well, that paint's going to be a waste. I really can't use much more of it. Getting too thick. Just spread it around on this one. If I can clean the brush off, and then preferably not too many. I don't want to use. I don't want to waste it again. Clean this off and get ourselves just a. And we're going to work very, very carefully on the brass touch-up, because I don't want to have to go back and forth too terribly many times. I think there's still some left in here. Be enough. We'll see. getting the red on. So what I'm going to do next is go back to the first one, which is in the back here, and just do little spot touch-ups. Spots, and they show. Roofs and stuff. Doing little micro dot touch-up things here. Well, the paint is still good. Just dry for a bit. And get out the brass paint and do some massive touching up. Hopefully with a great deal of skill. Don't need to retouch too many places. It's touching up in the other direction, which is always, something like this. There's always some spots where you need to go back and forth. Looks okay. I'm going to set that aside. What I'm going to do next is something completely different, at least different from this. Get out the gray wash. It mentioned right at the beginning is that when I was touching up these, I was making sure that I got the glue into the crevices, here and here, so that they look dark underneath. Because sometimes the wash doesn't even get in there, but there are all these little white specks on the floor. And I said, well, I could either touch those up, or maybe they would look interesting with the wash. And I don't know that. So we've got a lot of floors with a lot of white specks, and it might just be wonderful, or it might look bad. Don't know. I'm going to get out some of the dark gray wash, just like a drop or two, that we're going to use for the washing. Make sure it's well stirred up. I want to make sure that the pigment is well dispersed. Sometimes with the washes, the pigment can settle at the bottom, and then you get really lightly pigmented, lots of and then at the bottom all you get is pigment and no solvent, and it gets very uneven. And what we want is for this to look even all across. Dozens and dozens and dozens of pigments. Oh man, that was really bad. well, basically broke open on the spinner thing. Okay. Which wasted wash. I mean, that's one thing, but it also got it all over the spinner. That never happened before. So I can clean it up. That was just really weird. Big bunch of wash just pushed right out. So, emergency cleanup, aisle 1. Well, denatured alcohol would be okay with this or not, but it's not coming out of the little well on top here. Okay, well, that used up a couple of minutes in a way that's wanted. I did predict that this would be that kind of day, didn't I? And you know what? It's that kind of day. Okay, well, it's mainly clean. Back out of the way. Another disaster. Very slippery thing. Okay, so now we've got this bottle of no longer quite as full as it used to be. Oh, I see what happened. The whole top, that thing spins around. When I put the cap on it, you unscrewed the cap. So the moral of that story is, even though it makes some sense to do it upside down, because it'll mix it better, don't. At least not in a clockwise fashion. I have to clean this up later. Yeah, that was unexpected and gross. And now I'm missing the brush that I use all the time for washing. Handle brush. I'll use this instead. Hopefully this will work. So we're going to now squeeze out, hopefully well mixed dark gray ink. It's down into the little divots. That was the point of leaving them. End up looking. Brush that off. Really wanted a good bristle brush, leaving marks. We'll let this dry. See how it ends up looking. Something this. Yeah, I don't know where that went. It's here all the time. And things get moved around and it disappeared. Might be doing a whole lot of medium blue dot patching a little bit later if that doesn't turn out to look very good. Oh, well, that was an exciting, unplanned for, unpleasant mess. Gonna have to order another bottle of that. They used up like about a third of it, I think. Okay, well, what's happening here is that the wash isn't really covering the little spots. People like the way they look. I'm really kind of annoyed I don't have the brush I wanted. I thought I'd find it real quickly, but obviously not. Okay, now that dry, I'll make an aesthetic judgment a little bit later. I'll wash my hands at break. So what I'm going to do now with my messy hands, pull these guys back out, brush this paint, stir it up. Start the process of very carefully doing a lot of touching up on the brass bits. Yeah. So I'm going to start on the surface parts. It's a raised edge, so it's going to brush the raised part. And after I get that done, rotate it. Look at the edges to see how far down various parts we want to put the brass paint. You want to get the real obvious area, obvious spots first. because that makes like a 90% improvement immediately in the appearance. Front of it there, I mean, that's the part that's most visible. You can see as I'm doing that to the edges. The edges get cleaner and sharper right away. A lot of the mess immediately disappears as I get this done. The next trick is to take a look at it from like the top. That's how you're going to see it. And then decide more of it, if any. Yeah. One bristle sticking out. That's all it takes to make a mess of things. How much of any down onto the surface below the top. That's all I want to go. Like here, I need to because it's pretty clearly I want to get the brass paint down onto the color. That's the whole point. There in the first place, where I want to get down enough onto it so that it looks even, like here, like that. All the way down, far enough down so that you can see the grass goes around. Surface. And there's just a bunch of it like this here. And some of this to grab. And I'll flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. And what I'm doing is I'm making, just want to, so that if someone's looking at it, they can see that the grass is a raised surface. It doesn't go onto a horizontal surface, a flat surface underneath, but does come around. In painting in perfection, this is the appearance, the impression of painting perfection. It's important here. This roundy bit shows. I want to get down really close there. Edge. Okay. I'm going to continue doing it from this side. Okay. Rotate it. Let's see. Let's see the same sort of thing. As messy this side as the other side. Must be, the direction I hold my brush, that kind of thing. Done doing this touch up. Going to be doing next is taking the washed sample to Nikki and Alexis, who will then decide whether or not I should go back and paint all the little white dots on the floor. Which, isn't all that bad. It's just you have to get this brush out and kind of poke at them. There's a reason why they're white, and the reason that they're white is that they're indentations that the brushes just didn't naturally get the paint into. Takes a little bit of effort to do what otherwise would need to have been done. Seems this touching up is going okay. Build anything quite yet. Learned a lesson about how to use the paint stir. Here. So that's what it looks like touched up. And that's what it looks like not touched up. So you can see that the touching up is good. Makes it look better, more touched up. To say that I'm actually, fairly pleased with this. The sigil looks good. So I missed an obvious spot or not obvious spot. This one a success, and we'll move on to the next one. Triangle thing down at the bottom there. It's made a mess around it. So I'm going to do the same thing and basically look at it from one side, this side, which is the messy side. Oh yeah, let me follow my own advice. Let's paint the raised surface first. Easy part, but also It's to define things, the rest of it. Paint is pretty much used up. Much further. With basically a tacky brush of paint that doesn't come off. We'll wash the bristles, squeeze out another couple of drops. I'm just painting the front of the raised surface first. So that helps define the edges. And then I'll look at it from the sides. Let's see how far down toward the flat surface underneath I want to paint the grass. Basically what I'm going for are even edges and places that obviously the wrong color. Relatively easy. I just have to keep the brush kind of sideways and make sure I'm just catching the raised surface. So now we're going to look at it from this side. You know, just going to get even edges, like this little black block there that even out. Sometimes, and I keep saying over and over, sometimes it's not so important where the edge is, but that the edge is even. Raggedy edge just looks bad no matter what. Even edge gives you a little bit of room to play with in terms of its location. And what I'm going for is the effect we want is that the raised grass, you know, wraps around. You don't need to get the grass paint all the way down to the flat surface underneath, but I don't want it right up at the top either. It's too bad the flip was over and do the same thing on this side. And then we'll look at it from the top, front and the top, which is the primary viewing angle. And see how it looks. camera. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get see the camera down in because I'm doing it really much edgewise here. Get it from how you will see it. That's how you feel. Looking at it this way, maybe straight on. And now it looks pretty nice. Okay, so now we got the last one here to touch up. Okay, we're done with this one. I'm going to take a short break. Take a look at that washed tile to see how much touching up that I still need to do on all of the rest of them. I may be spending quite a lot of time covering dots on floors. I'll have the blue paint out doing that. And while I'm doing that, I'll be touching up the base of the cauldron where I got the Bass paint on it when I painted that at the last show. And also putting the base coat on the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dungeon tiles that are needed to complete one of the sets. Trying to get some complete sets that we can show off in the final colors. These are really important accent pieces. Major magic user. This is for a fire element. So fire magic, basically, which is why we have a cauldron with a flame. We get the surfaces here, and then I'm going to, like I did before, rotate it and put the grass color down. Edges so that you get the clear impression the whole base surface is made of the grass. Excuse me. Humidifier is running all over the house, but down here, you have cooler, drier air. Yeah, and sometimes that gives rise to drippy nose syndrome. Got here. be chatting. I don't have too much terribly to say, though, other than I'm spreading paint around, touching up on the sigils. That, and I'm keeping it, like 80%, 90% on the screen, which is pretty good for me. It's work when I've finished touching them up a little bit more here. Really, see what happens? It gets down onto the surface and it's really obvious, which is why I was trying to not do that. So I'm gonna get out some red paint and try to get it in there, and probably have to come back. It's a really tight spot. I need to come back and touch it up again. So close to the end. It happens. A bit there. Actually, part of the print. That would take some carving. I just might take the time to do that. Exactly, knife real quick and just do that while I've got this paint out. Then I need a tiny little dot, tiniest little dot of red paint spot there. But it now looks better. I'm looking down at it now from the angles that the viewer and the players who are using these are most likely to see it. And other than that one slip here, looks like this turned out pretty well too. Put this up just a little more. That's definitely a problem there. So let me paint again. Any of this little dot. I'm actually going to try using the itty bitty brush. Itty bitty little brush to see if I can't. Okay. A little dark spot here since I got some paint out, a little brush. So, oh my. Good thing I was looking. There's an even bigger spot here. over this like 3 times and didn't see that. One, two, problem. 3 completed sigils for the set that we're working on. What we need to do is get all of the pieces that are missing, or a couple that are missing, including one of those really nice big 4x4 around the corners. But at least this bit is done. So I'm going to wash off this brush. The other brush, the one that I was using for the brass touch-up. That little spot there. Wash this brush out again. I'm going to be doing next on the break, during break, it'll be a working break, is I will be cleaning all of this dark gray wash off of my fingers after the disaster that we had on the stirring stand. Don't stir these upside down, it unscrews the cap and then it spills. Taking the sample that we had here and showing it to them and getting a decision about whether, and it looks like we will need to, having little white specks probably is more of a bug than a feature, but I'll get their opinion. And I'll be pulling out the medium blue paint, and I will be doing a whole bunch of stuff with it. One is I will be touching up around the base of the cauldron. That goes with this set. Goes with the sigil set. And then I will be base coating those 6 tiles there, because those will actually then complete a set once it's base coated and the accents are on. And then I will no doubt be spending the better part of 700 years covering up all the little dots on the floors of all of the dungeon sets that we've got. And then when I'm done with that, these will be dry and I'll be able to paint the accent colors on those. So yeah, exciting first half of the show, quite a nice mess. See you soon. I'll be back from break in about 15 minutes. And we're back from break. So, what's that? That's one of our cats coming to say hello. We've showed this off. This is before and after here. This is before washing. This is after washing. So you could see how the blue with the dark gray wash really looks pretty good. I didn't have the right brush, so it's a little streaky. But the decision was that these little white spots where the paint didn't quite get way down into it, or as it dried, it pulled away, that after washing, it looks fine. So that floor will be okay. And I don't need to touch up all the little dots. I probably will go back over some of those to make sure that, like this one, there's a streak on it. Okay. I mean, little dots, which might be flecks in the floor, are one thing, but streaks like that, that'll show actually through the wash. Anyway, that means that I'll be doing a lot less little touching up, but I will be doing a lot of work with this blue paint. The first thing that has to be done, let me get these sigils out of the way. First thing that has to be done is just touching up around the base of the cauldron here, because I wanted to make sure that the brass got all the way down to the bottom. You can't really see the bottom that much when you're looking at it from, when you're viewing it as you're playing. So I didn't mind getting the brass down, but now I need to just paint the blue, up to the base of it and get a nice even edge. And the other thing, two other things, depending on how far I can get going today, is this set of 6 tiles is necessary to complete the necromancy layer. And so I'm going to get the base coat of blue on these, and there's 6 of them, so it'll take a while, and I'm just going to move them along one at a time. And then as I get to the last one, the first one should be dry, and I will pull out the Quark Brown, and just as I did before, put the accent bricks in. And so that the necromancy set should be all ready to be washed. That should be ready to be washed, and the pool with the realistic water in it, I'm not sure what color that will end up being. Purple, green, red are colors that we tried. If you look at the scroll underneath me, you can see some of those. Stirring up paint on the little thing that exploded in my wash before. I thought for sure we got light gray wash as well. Guessing that was tested and found wanting. I don't need the palette, at least for this. I'll need it for the cork. But this I just use right out of the bottle. This paint, this one is almost done. We'll get the touch-up done with this, and then probably not terribly... Anyway, let's see how many tiles I can finish. This is going to be hard to view. Painting basically the surface underneath another surface. It's going to be hard to see. Apologize for that. But not too many choices there. Well, I'm just trying to make sure I cover the big spots of brass and to get a fairly even, not necessarily perfect edge around the bottom, because nobody will ever really see that. the paint splotches that I got all over the edges though. We playtime upstairs. They do a lot of sleeping as they're growing. They're like really fast. I mean, like, yeah, they're big poodles, big standard poodles. One of them is already 45 pounds, and she's what I think 5 months old. 5 months old. The other one is about 5 or 6 pounds lighter. We have a standard size standard poodle. Very cute. Anyway, yeah, so just, trying to get an even edge around here with painting up to, but not too much over the brass. There we're, whoops. Well, it looks pretty good, but still has this is obviously hand painted appearance. So set that aside. Leave it there with our sigils. Now what I'm going to do, oh yeah, I wanted to fix, since I got this brush out, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to quickly go over, see where there's a streak like there. I'm not going to try to fix all the little dots, but if there's like a streak, that's an obvious flaw, I want to touch those up. So I'll be right back. I'm just going to look. There weren't too many of them, but not that. I just want to catch the spots there. It's clearly a flaw. That might not be covered over with the wash. Excuse me. Yeah, see, this one's kind of a mess on the edge. So that couldn't be fixed just by washing it. And it would look oddly worn. Excuse me. Yeah. Allergic to the second half of the show. Actually, I do have all sorts of environmental allergies that just keep cropping up. mainly leaf mold and pollen. So springs and falls, like for most people, are kind of sometimes an unpleasant time. Down here, I think it's just cold, dry air. The rough stone ones. Most of the rough stone ones came out looking okay, but this one is too streaky, I think. Yeah, this last one here. Okay. Wash this off. What I'm going to do next is base coat the remaining 6 tiles that are needed for the necromancer layer. I was able to find this brush I was looking for. It was conveniently located on the floor. What I'm going to do is put on a glove, because I'm going to definitely get paint on my hands. But since everything is the same color, I don't have the issue of worrying about smudging one color onto another color. And one thing I learned when I was doing a touch-up is if I hold them on the top and the bottom, since the bottom is not painted, I can paint almost everything except the top surface. And then I can set it down and paint that and get, relatively speaking, not too terribly much paint all over places I don't want it. Now, the important thing with these is, to get into the cracks, but on the floor and on the blocks, especially the floor, is to make sure the paint gets down into the space between the floor tile blocks, because we want that to be dark. We're not planning on having a light colored grout situation here. And we paint all the way down to the bottoms of these tiles, including the very base like this, because what we found is that sometimes it just ends, okay? Or you can see down in between them. And we want all the surfaces to look good. Now, one thing we found, especially with these Tamiya paints, is that when you're painting really large surfaces, and they're really good because they don't show brush marks, but sometimes as it dries, it pulls away from itself on the surface. That is, it shrinks. As it shrinks, it'll sometimes leave bubbles, uncovered spots. Anyway, I'm using this brush. It's nice soft bristles. It covers a large surface area. And I can get down into these openings between the blocks really pretty well. It holds a fair amount of paint. I can do, decent amount of surface at a time. But the important part here is to make sure that the paint gets down into those crevices, because otherwise they'll jump right out even after washing. Even if the wash gets in there, it isn't really opaque, so it'll darken it but not blacken it. So this process, base coating, uses up a fair amount of paint. I will definitely be draining this bottle. See, it kind of pulls away on itself because it's near the end of the bottom of the bottle. It's a little viscous. I might end up putting, anyway, yeah, a little more paint than ordinarily. But I definitely want to use up the paint that's in the bottle. So that's what we'll do. These corners have a lot of surface area. Each one is 2 walls. They take a while to paint. That's where I'll get it on my finger because that's where I'm holding it at the top there. Putting the paint into the spaces between the blocks. Those especially are colored. Need to rotate it to see, if you missed any, because sometimes it looks just fine from one angle, and then you look at it from another, and it's definitely not. Sides of the walls here. This feels like it takes a while, but then I watched videos of us doing base coats later. Some of the very earliest painting streams we did ages ago were of dungeon tiles and paint base coats, and it felt like, wow, this block is taking like a long time. And then you look at the video and it's like, oh, paint, all done. So it does look like it's going, it's pretty quickly. One of the things we're doing, or thinking of doing, or try it next, or at least Nikki is the primer is airbrushed on. And what we're going to experiment with, try it, is since this base coat is on these stone walls, the cut stone and the rough stone both, the base coat is one uniform color on the walls and the floors, is airbrushing the base coat on. And what we're kind of, the thing we need to be concerned about is making sure it gets into all of this gaps between the stones. So we're thinking if you airbrush it directly straight on, that it would do that. It would use up a little more paint because airbrushing, brushing on, the only paint you waste really is the stuff that sticks in the brush when you're all done. Airbrushing kind of sprays it all over the place. But the amount of time it would save, and potentially the appearance, the benefit for the appearance, is worth the experiment. So we're definitely going to give that a try. I'm going to do the top here. And after these dry, you can already see there's some paint pulling apart. Let it dry. Come back, do a little bit of touch up. This should be ready to be touched up about the time I finish the last one. And then as I circle around from the touching up, they should be ready for the accent blocks to be painted. And I'm hoping to finish that process today so that we would have this one set complete and ready for final washing. Okay, so now I need to just get that with the brush, and we'll move on to another one. There is an entire another set waiting to be base coated. It is a huge one. It's the Dungeon of Doom. Most of it is sitting over here to the side, and we'll see what the time is like when I'm done with this. I want to show it to you. It's really pretty cool. The special feature there in the Dungeon of Doom is that there are trap tiles. I mean, it's nicely designed to be annoyingly awful to paint because there's tons and tons of corner tiles. But these trap tiles are cool. They're traps built into the walls. So each wall actually has 2 walls. There's a floor, and there's a pivot and a magnet in the floor. And one wall is just like, oh, there's the wall. There's the plain old wall. The other wall has an opening out of which a nasty thing will come. And we have done it both with a flame. So it's a fire trap, shoots out at you. And the other is a gas cloud, kind of a greenish, bluish, grayish, ugly looking gas cloud of noxiousness. So yeah, those trap tiles are pretty cool. And you can either, the DM, when the trap is triggered, has the option of either taking the plain wall out and putting the trap wall in to show that the trap has been triggered. Another feature of this is these dungeon tiles are alive. And you can do a lot of reconfiguring right during an event. And the other option is to have the trap on the back side of the wall and just rotate it. And that just depends on largely the point of view of the players, and if you're doing a stream, the point of view of the camera. But those options are available with those tiles. But the Dungeon of Doom has a narrow, lots of doors, dead-end rooms, traps, narrow corridor where you can get stuck between some doors, single file. There's not room for two aside each other. Yeah, it's a pretty cool one. But the one I think I like the best is not one of the biggest ones. I think it's actually one of the smaller ones. It's the one I'm working on now, which is the Necromancer layer. Because I really like the way the pool looks. And occasionally it'll flash up. You get to see the way it looks. And my second favorite is the other one I was working on, which is the magic or the mage room with the cauldron with the flame that comes up, or if it's using water magic, it'll be a little fountain. If it's earth magic, it'll be a spout of dirt. And if it's water, air, it'll be a cloud of puff of cloud of some sort, or maybe a storm. Sometimes for air, you use a storm. And we've got sigils for all of those. We haven't painted those yet. The one we're doing as a finished product is the fire. The ones I did a couple of shows ago were the wooden ones with the stucco, wooden walls with stuccos, and there's several variations based on those. There's like a tavern kind of thing, and a warehouse. Those are just really pretty. I think the wood, the colors we chose and the wash we chose for the wood, really, really nice. It's almost like it's like aged oak. The grain in the wood shows really well when it's washed, and the color for the stucco is really rich. They just look really nice. These stone rooms are designed to look, you know, like they're made out of stone, either cut stone or rough stone like this. This is a rough stone because it was to be careful not to touch it again until it's dry. So I should just wait to touch it up later because it pulls away from itself a little bit. Up there. Yep. Another corner. Edges there. In between here, it's not too bad, but you have to get it up where several angles meet together. The brush is getting saturated. This is actually working a little better. Mm-hmm. So get all this blue on here. And then, it looks like it's drying pretty well. It should be about the time I finish the last one that the first one will be ready for touching up. And there will be some touching up because this paint, as it dries, shrinks. And because of all the nooks and crannies and crevices and rough surfaces, oftentimes it will pull away from itself and leave a white spot, or in this case, kind of a tan color spot, which is what the primer is. And so I'm working primarily to get the paint not just on the surface of the blocks, but especially between the blocks, because we want that to be dark once it's washed. It's to be pretty dark because that will just show the features. It'll show the texture better. And you don't want just this big white blot for no particular reason showing between some of the blocks in the middle of the wall. This paint is actually holding up pretty well in this bottle. I thought I'd be almost finished with it by now, but it's I might get these done before the paint runs out. We will see. Except you already had your treat this morning. You just saying hello? Saying hi to everybody? Hi. Yeah. I know you want your litter box cleaned. You need some attention. Yeah, they're playing with the dogs upstairs and not you. That's really not fair. The litter box room is open. Yeah, you just need attention. I know, but you have to wait another hour. Cat is very chatty. It sounds like displeasure all the time. It's hard to tell if he's ever happy because he's always sounding like he's complaining. Yeah. Yeah. Sniffly nose syndrome. Cold, dry air in the basement. Probably just fine for paint drying. Not so much for sinuses. Okay. Okay. Take a break from the corner and just do a single wall. We have a corner and an inside corner. Right there. Let's have inside corners. It's kind of neat to be able to do, the contour of a room, sometimes a room in a room by using those. Another nice feature of the kind of sets that we're building is the inside corner, which gives you a lot of flexibility to do different things with your setup. Then you mind if all you've got are corners. And we also have a variety of corners. We have the square corners, which you're seeing getting painted now, but we also have some really cool round corners in both the cut and the rough stone. In fact, this particular set has a little alcove made out of round corner. Comes around there. You can see it. There's the pool and the little alcove thing, which is kind of cool. And this is a necromancer lair, which means it was originally a crypt. And so up in that alcove, as an accent piece, is a tomb, sarcophagus, really. Experimented with different colors for that. We've done it a light kind of tan color for sandstone. We've done it metallic. Done, just used different color combinations. I'm not sure in the final production how we're going to be painting this sarcophagus. sure that you'll see it on one of these streams, because it's one of those things that needs to be done. Or we might use one that we've already finished that looks really good, because I know some of them look really good, and use it in the final production set that we're doing here. This one really hard is just inventory control. There's a lot of different pieces to each of these sets. Some sets have pieces that are just unique to them, like the pool. Sigils. Others are more interchangeable, but in any case, it's an issue of having enough of each kind. And in this case, we've got one extra of one thing, and these were the pieces that were missing from the Necromancer layer that I'm trying to finish up here, so we'll have at least that set complete. And then, well, except for the door, we need to paint the doors yet and the lintel that goes across the top. And of course, it all has to be washed. So as you can see, the process of making these beautiful hand-painted dungeon tiles sets is a little time-consuming. But what we know is that every single one is handmade here in Michigan. And we get to show off how we do it on this stream, which is also kind of cool. This side corner. Paint spun. It's this thing here. Resistance is futile. Getting, close to being done with this particular one. And then we'll paint the inside corner, and then we'll get out a smaller brush, go back to the very first one, and do probably the inevitable touch-up where some of the paint might have pulled away from itself as it was drying and shrinking, or where I might have just missed a spot, which is quite possible. Here, where touch a painted surface with a wet brush and it pulls the paint away. Getting close to the end of this bottle of paint too, so the timing, picking up quite as much paint as it was because it's very shallow on the bottom. But I think there'll be plenty of paint to finish this one and the other one. There isn't much surface area on the inside corner. And the outside corner has 2 full walls. That has just a tiny little pillar. Basically this on 4 sides. And what I'll do is, after the touching up, is if there's any paint left in this bottle, I will actually just dump it into the new bottle, because there might be enough to make that worthwhile. But yeah, we're getting near the bottom. There's less solvent. Paint's a little gummy, but it's still working okay. Still getting enough on the brush to do the job. We're going to have to make a paint purchase list. This huge. It's enough to finish that. The Dungeon of Doom is a very large set. But we also have a bunch of tiles that need to be printed and primed. They're printed, they just need to be primed for the cut stone sets that we're working on. And those are painted in this blue with the gray wash as well. Make a paint purchase list. Maybe between streams, like tomorrow. It's a little bit less busy because I'm busy doing this. We'll get down here and take a look at all the stuff that needs to be done yet and make a paint purchase, like an inventory. We might even put some paints away. Alexis made these really cool paint holders. Here it is. They're spools from the PLA, and they are custom made to hold Viejo bottles. And then they hold them really well. The problem is that after they've been used, some of us, like me, don't put them away again, and so they just pile up. So got a whole pile of paint bottles that need to be put away. So that might be something to do on a non-streaming day, because it probably wouldn't be that much fun to watch me just put paint bottles in slots. I don't know, might be. You never know what people like. But it's a thing that needs to be done, and at the same time that we're doing that, it would be an opportunity to do an inventory of what we have available. I should say she also made one for the Tamiya paints there. just barely drying in time. Yeah, this is working out okay. There, I don't think if I had another outside corner, I don't think I'd have enough paint to get it done. I do think I have enough paint to get this inside corner done and to do the touch up. But that's pretty much it. It's going to be any extra to move on to the next model either, which is fine. Pain to do. Scraping the corners of the bottom of the bottle here. Be doing touch up in the bottom. Getting pretty close to the end of this. Although the touch up uses an amazingly tiny amount of paint, just tiny little dots in a much smaller brush. So the amount of paint that's probably in this brush would be enough to do all the touch up that's necessary. So I think we'll be okay. As long as there aren't any really big areas. And this is turning out to be kind of a pain to reach. You know, I'll do the tip of it. Paint on this brush, and I'd like to use it for the touch up, but it's not going to work. Maybe it will. We'll just do that. Basically, I'm just rotating this thing, like finding spots like that. There's a spot. This brush, yeah, this brush is good enough to get down into the nooks and crannies, I think. Refuses to grab paint. Different angles. You know, missing paint or just wet and shiny. We got spots. Minimize the surface area I'm touching. To get mostly where I need to. It's not too bad. There at the top. Quite as quickly as I was hoping. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get the here. What happened here is a bad mess. Looks like it just got bumped or something and the paint got pulled away. Here and here. It's a pain to hold. Give these ones a look over without touching them again. Let's see if there's spots that are missing paint, any obvious flaws. Do the wash, there might be, you never know, like final inspection kind of things. But for the most part, they look good because actually there isn't any more paint. But they better look good. Yeah, I mean it is just down to like a dot. So I'm going to go over here, make sure that there aren't any obvious flaws. Some of these other sets. Paint on their brush. I'm doing. Yeah, so we have witnessed the emptying of a bottle of paint. Just cap that up and throw it. Okay, well, I was hoping that these, at least at the beginning, would be dry enough to go back and paint the accent color. But I'm not seeing that that's going to be happening, at least not right at the moment. So I can do one of a couple of things. I can just chat for a while I'm cleaning this brush. I can recap some of what we've done. I can begin opening a new bottle of paint. And like I just did, do the base coat on that set. We can just sit here and watch paint dry. Clean this brush off a little bit, and then we'll do a recap. But I don't want to lose that. I've always liked that brush. This one's like 25 years old too. You can tell, it's been used a little bit. Got some buildup around here that probably should be taken off. Anyway, still works. Just like me. Old enough you're surprised it still works. The glove has got blue paint on it, and I'm going to be touching done pieces. I don't want to make a mess of those. So what we've got here is the cauldron for another one of the magic sets. And this cauldron is essentially the same as this. And it's because it's fire magic. The flame can turn off. So you got this cauldron in the room, and the magic user, the wizard, or sorcerer comes in and says, I want fire. Get fire. And this actually has a magnet in the base, so it doesn't fall. It's pretty neat because then you can move it around and not worry about it. But if you want to, you can always easily take it off. So it's kind of a cool effect. This is the new one. This is painted in a base gray. This is painted in the blue. And when you put a wash on the blue, you get a really good deep stone effect. See that? You can see the difference there between the washed and unwashed blue. And I can pick another, I'll show you better sigils. And surrounding this flame in the cauldron, there's a difference between the washed and unwashed floors. You can just see how it takes this kind of denim-y blue color and makes it look like a really cool stone. There, I'm going to actually, now that I'm looking at it, take that tiny little bit of paint that's still left in the bottom of the bottle. You can see that on these sigil tiles, which I didn't look at earlier when I was doing touch-up. There's some spots that are just real streaky and not very good. And I didn't look at those for touch-up because I was way too busy painting the sigils, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this bottle open here. What the heck? So they have these really cool fire sigils on them, which I finished painting earlier in the stream. Brass rim around it, imposed on the wall, red, flat black, and copper. And these appear on all three sides around the cauldron. So that's a really neat feature. Oh, that's what I can do. I never painted the accent blocks on these because I wanted to make sure the sigil was done because I knew I'd have to use the blue touch-up. So I'm actually going to do that while the rest of these are drying, or sort of drying. Get them sort of out of the way. Yeah, really glad I looked at these again to show them to you because there are two things that needed to be done. One is I needed to touch up the floor because they were really not well painted in a couple of areas, and the other is the accent blocks never got done on these, again because I was going to use the blue for touch-up. So what I am going to do is use this cork color. Here we go. Without the top opening and spilling all over the place. Use out just a little bit on the palette here and paint those in. Yeah, I mean, I just totally forgot about that. Now this is interesting because most of the blocks, you can see them on the back. Okay, and I've been painting somewhere between 3 and 5 accent blocks on each one. Usually I mark the front first, but this time I'm going to mark the back. Back and front. I'm not going to do that. That's just too hard to reach. Most of the accent blocks you'll see on the back, but not necessarily on the front. Because the sigil covers up most of it. So there's 5. And actually, usually I paint the front first. I'm going to paint the back first. That's where you see them. And these two you won't see on the front at all because they're behind the sigil. Don't necessarily need a lot of accent blocks right against the sigil because actually that's the whole point of the thing. You don't want to. I don't really want to distract too much from it. But the back, you might see the back. Well, you'll definitely see it if you're playing. And if you're streaming, you might also see the back. in which case you don't want it to like be totally different from all of the other tiles in the set. So what I've learned is through a hard lessons is paint the edges last. That's where you're most likely to touch it. And touching it is not good because then you'll touch something like the front of the sigil and create a huge touch-up mess. There's more edge blocks on this than usual because of the sigil in front, and we wanted a couple of them to show. Anyway, next one I'll probably just do like 2 edges. I don't want to overdo the edges. I might do 2 on the top though. Sometimes you look at the top and you want the top part to be interesting, and you want to make sure that you get this cork color onto the blue so that you get a reason to open up this almost dead bottle of paint, pull out an otherwise useless brush, and touch up that spot before you forget about it. And as you're doing that, you see another spot there that needed to be touched up ages ago and never was. Here, that probably should be blue. You don't mess with it too much. So set that aside and go back to the cork and finish up these accent blocks here. Yeah, so I'm really glad I pulled this out to show to you because I was like totally missing an important part. Completion of this set, which is the accent blocks on the sigil blocks. You were to see camera moving around like that. But I tend to do that because I want to show you different things and stuff. And just somehow get paint there. Got that done. Okay, that there, I guess. Need to do this whole corner here. Go on the front a little bit. That was a mistake doing that one because that's a pain to get. But yeah. Three of these show on the front. Get that one. Get these on the back. usually like to do some near the bottom, but maybe I'll do one. That's kind of near the bottom. But if I do one right at the bottom, they're going to show on the front, and those are going to be hard enough to paint that I would say it's not worth the effort. No, worth the chance of making a mess of things when it isn't necessary. Waxing painting, completing the accent bricks and the sigil tiles. This is the second of 3. Here, yeah, it looks pretty good from the back and the front. Not too many of them show because the sigil takes up most of the space. And there's one more. Let's do this one on the top. It'll be a little bit of a pain to get around there, and it shows pretty significantly. And we'll just have one more show on the front. We'll do it on this side. Here. I do the one here below it. So that's a good safe one to do. Then I want a couple down here. And this one. And do this dangerous one first and get it out of the way. Look okay. It's adequate. That white spot is there. That's why we kept this blue paint out, just for an occasion like that. The puppies are having an event upstairs. They are very well housebroken by now. We've had hardly any accidents lately. He said, probably jinxing things. The only time that's happened is when they get really riled up and they're chasing each other all over the place, and especially Alice loses control. It happened a couple of times, so we learned to monitor them and settle them down before that happens. And that's been successful mostly. Yeah. But they do sometimes really get going, chasing each other around, chasing toys, just call them the zoomies, zipping all over the place. But they're really pretty good. At least they don't bump into things. They have hardly chewed on anything they shouldn't. They're pretty good about chewing only on things that are given to them as gifts. Getting their this little game they play where they basically just bark at each other. You just stand off from each other at a little distance, face each other, and make barking sounds, which might be filtered out. I don't know if you could hear them. Okay. So this one looks like it's got all of them. I'm going to do a real quick inspection of the 3 to make sure that I got them done. You know, I don't like how that looks. That one's okay with that. The corner just throws it off balance. It's okay if it's just the corner. So I'm actually going to repaint that corner piece blue. Just going to get rid of it because it throws it off. It just throws it off. And I think there's just enough sticky blue paint in here that go. Having done that, I have to say that was definitely the right. Whoa. There, that's somebody was on a real tear there. Yeah, they're getting to the, we need to settle this down a little bit time. And they're usually pretty good about calming down once you get a hold of them. Give them a little bit of a treat and they settle. At least that sounds like what Alexis is trying to do up there. So I am seeing all sorts of spots that need touching here. There or there. So there, yeah, got the accent blocks on the sigils now. I knew that was going to be a problem. This one here, if you look at it, it doesn't go quite up far enough. They really shouldn't have done that one. Get closer to the grass. just a tiny little bit. It was pushing paint up to it just to get it up to the edge interface. There, that's what it needed. Now it looks much better. Okay, so that paint is done. This paint is done. Done, and you know, the other walls that I just base coated, unfortunately, are not. There's just too many wet spots on those yet to take a chance doing the accent blocks. But noticing these, I think fill the time pretty well, and especially on the back, you know, where that is going to definitely show. That was a good move. And the front, it's not too distracting on the front, which is good. I don't know if you could see it, but on this one, there were also accent blocks here and here. And then there were some on the back here. It was a much darker brown. It doesn't show up as well. So we decided to go with one that when it's washed, will show. This is probably more like natural looking in the sense that the stone wouldn't contrast a lot. But, you know, if you want to see it, you have to use a color that shows a little better. And that's what we did here. Okay. So let's recap again. We got the cauldron here. Cauldron's done. This will eventually have a magnet in it. And we'll be painting a flame or use the other flame for the production set. We got these sigils done and remembered right at the end to put the accent blocks in, and got the base coat on the remaining blocks of the necromancer layer. And so Wednesday, probably the first thing I'm going to do is paint the accent blocks on those so that they'll be ready to wash. I'd lay one of these down, but the back is still wet. But they're really cool looking, so you should just look at them. Excuse me. Yeah, so we'll be painting the accent blocks on the necromancer layer, so those will be ready to wash. This will be ready to go. And then there's this huge set here that needs to be base coated. So I've got a brand new bottle of medium blue, unopened, that will be opened, stirred seriously on the stirring machine, and base coating that entire set. And that might be big enough so that by the time I get around to the first one I painted, it might be dry enough to be doing accent blocks, but we'll see. Probably it'll take right up until the break to get all of that done. The other thing we'll be doing probably between now and then is doing a real significant inventory of our dungeon tiles to find out what still needs to be printed, what of those need to be primed, and then what color they need to be. Whoa, that one sounded bad. Sounded like somebody really got out of control there. I hope there was no injury. It's one of the dogs slipping on the floor. Like I said, there wasn't any injury. across the room. Look at what I'm, every time you look, you see something. Most all the time, right? So basically what I'm seeing is looking down at the top of these sigil tiles is I'm seeing that there's some gaps. There's some spots on the very top between the blocks. Didn't get adequately painted. Just one little spot there. Just annoying enough to require attention. That, it'd be tiny enough that the wash would get down in there. Yeah, there's probably more of them there. But we'll do a final quality control before we do the wash. And on that note, yeah, pretty much ready to wrap up here today. Clean out this brush one more time. This served well today. Painting sigils and touching up painting sigils. But there's paint collecting down at the base of the bristles that it's hard to get out. So every once in a while, just have to do a really thorough cleaning by immersing them in isopropyl alcohol and letting it really dissolve. So put that one there. This is the teeny little brush with 3 filaments on it that I use with some frequency on minifigs. This one is getting close to needing to be replaced. It's actually much reduced from one that had twice as many bristles, but that's what it is. Yeah, so come back on Wednesday. I'm going to do the accent blocks on these guys. Never end, because there's always something. Be a little bit of touch up again. Thought I got them pretty well. Yeah, so accent blocks on those. Set them aside and break out a new bottle of blue paint and do the base coat on another set. And that won't be very exciting because I'll be painting a lot of surface area like I did with these 6 blocks today, except 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Oh, a little more than 3 times as many, plus the floors. So 4.5 times as many. Yeah, that'll be fun. So here, again, this is the primary product of today. So I'm going to wrap up a few minutes early. Might as well, because I started a few minutes late. We only had a couple of minor and 1 major disaster today. That was pretty good, considering I was expecting more. I didn't spill the wash water until near the very end, and then very much. And what we're going to need to do is an inventory of pieces and an inventory of paints, and we'll probably be printing a few extra pieces, priming a bunch. Nikki will be doing the priming, and then yeah, wrapping up these sets. And maybe I would say the week after next, you'll be able to see them completed. Yep, hopefully. I'm going to have to buy more of this dark gray wash now that I spilled 10% of it. Although it does go fairly far. Yeah, I'm starting to babble. I need to wrap up and clean up and we'll see you Wednesday from more or less 10, probably closer to 10, 12, until 2, give or take 10 minutes on either side of 2 o'clock. So thanks for joining in. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening as a podcast later, hopefully not listening because not much is going on except babbling about things you can't see. But if you catch it on YouTube, thanks. And we appreciate your support. Bye.